Noting Mr. Pendleton's absent, Dr. Van.
Here.
Mr. Wells. Here. Noting Mr. Young is absent, Dr. Whibley.
Here.
Noting Mr. Bateman's absent, and Ms. Sutter.
I am here. Let's start with our presentation. We're welcoming Anthony Rondeau. Oh, there you are. Hello, welcome. Nice to hear about the Norfolk International Airport Master Plan.
Before Mr. Rondo presents, Madam Chair, just to understand there is an action for a resolution that will need to be taken to adopt the master plan for the airport in order to ensure that we're in alignment with the zoning regulations. This is we don't want to slow them down. We want to get them going on the rest of the projects they have, and so adopting the master plan allows us to continue to get approvals out for them. So it's been a while coming. They've done a lot of work on this master plan. So Anthony, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate the setup, Bobby.
Ultimately my goal today is to get to a presentation, just a quick slide on the airport layout plan, which is the key thing that the FAA approves during the master plan update process. But I want to present a few of the projects that are more real and underway right now before we get to the flat, somewhat boring airport layout plan sheet. Yes, thank you. So just a quick 2 slides on the number of destinations and our appointments that we have these days that really are the justification and the reasoning behind our need to make certain improvements. Currently, we serve 45 nonstop destinations, and will be 46 when we start to Cancun, but that's going to be in 2026. But certainly the most nonstop destinations that we've had ever. So it's a big deal. A lot of those are provided by Breeze, who've grown tremendously here, but also 50% of our traffic is carried by American and Delta. So we've got a good balance between the legacy carriers as well as some ultra low cost carriers. And our growth has shown that the airlines are providing good service and that the community is responding. It's one thing for the airlines to put seats into the community, but they have to be filled. And if they're not, they're going to take their assets elsewhere. But the community here has very much appreciated this service, and our employment totals have shown that. We had our busiest month ever in July of this year and surpassed 500,000 total passengers for the first time ever, and we do believe that we'll cross the $5 million passenger number this year as well. And I say total in passengers, that's enplanements and deplanements. And with everything going on, one thing I'll point out is that our seat capacity remains very strong. Our marketing department monitors that on a daily basis, and every time a schedule gets published or an announcement gets made, they go in and they run the math. And yes, we have some pluses and some minuses, but the net is very strong year over year. So we do believe we'll continue to have good growth. So that's what's driving, really, I'll say, Mark Perryman's vision. He came in and has worked at a lot of airports throughout his career. And he had great energy and great vision, and he looked at our master plan, which was very heavy on airfield emphasis, and rightly so. We had a tremendous amount of pavement that needed attention. It needed immediate attention, and we got that taken care of. And Mark said, look at our numbers. We need to pull these terminal improvements forward. And even absent of the numbers, you can walk around behind the scenes, I'll say, in places that most people can't get, and you really see the stress on the facility. So a couple things that we're doing to facilitate the growth and the demand and the pressure on the facility. One of them is the main entrance improvements. I'm sure you are familiar with the layout of the airport in general, but as you come on, we have a main T intersection. That's great if you're coming from Norview. It's relatively easy, I should say, to navigate that. If you're coming in off Robin Hood, which 50% of our traffic does access the airport off Robin Hood, you have to go to an offset intersection after navigating an immediate four-way stop, and it's been a mess for us, and it's really become problematic, especially as the peaks at the airport have become very defined. The aircraft are getting larger, more efficient, that's great. But when you turn a certain count of aircraft in the morning that have 50% more passengers on it, the influx of vehicles onto the site in the morning is pretty tremendous. And so this brings us to a normal four-legged intersection, signalized intersection, that is going to be very well controlled in terms of signage approaching from each leg. It'll be something that, the users are familiar with navigating. You see it all over the city and everywhere that you go. And not a bit of the, not just offset intersection condition that we had previously, we also had some line of sight concerns that were inadequate and didn't meet today's standards as well. So that's underway. Hope to be done with that in the spring of 2027. We had that budgeted for $26 million. We applied, that was going to be mostly locally funded. We applied for some bill discretionary funds through the Infrastructure Jobs Act. I guess we can't call it the bipartisan law any longer, but the Infrastructure Jobs Act. And fortunately, we received $17.2 million for that project. So that's very, very helpful. That keeps that amount of money from rolling down to the local bottom line as we try to take on these other improvements. Another great project currently in design, and I believe in the permitting process, the early stages of permitting, is a consolidated rental car facility. This is something that has been in the works for a very long time. Actually, about 15 years ago, Enterprise came to us and wanted to build this facility on this very site. The business terms were more in their favor than ours, and so we did not proceed. But as we've come out of COVID, there's a very heavy push for leisure travel. And those individuals rent a lot of vehicles from us. And they also come in peaks. And the current situation is that our rental car facilities are in Garage A. They have the ready vehicles there, they have the return vehicles there, but their service is off-site. So they have to fly at incredible speeds, about 1.5 miles away, do the best they can to service the vehicle, and then come back at incredible speeds as well. So we're building this facility on the site that was the previous rental car return lot a number of years ago. And so it's our vertical use of the site that is very similar to what it had been in the past. And it's going to contain all of the quick turnaround infrastructure needed by the rental car companies to service their vehicles on site. They'll fuel them, they'll clean them, vacuum and wash them if needed, and then they'll just bring them right back up into the ready spots. So it really short circuits that trip for them. And the capacity is more than double what it currently is in terms of number of vehicles that will remain on site. Unfortunately, we've had one too many instances of people having to wait 4 hours for vehicles, and it's just not acceptable. So we are well underway on the design with this. We have a construction manager at risk, and we're working towards a guaranteed maximum price. We hope to start construction in March and be done with that by the end of 2027. With that, we will relocate the TNC or the rideshare lot that is in the old surface lot for the rental cars that the Conrac's going to be built right on top of. We're going to move that into what is currently an overflow storage lot for the rental car companies. So again, it's a service lot being repurposed as another surface lot, just a different tenant, so to speak. We've had, a number of accidents on that curve. It's a 90-degree curve with a berm right off the edge of pavement. We're flattening that curve to today's standards for the speed. And then with the increased movements of vehicles for the TNCs, we felt we needed to clean that up, get it to current standards, line of sight, curve, all that fun stuff. So that's why we're flattening that curve that's currently at Robin Hood. With that, we're also going to build a larger observation lot the observation lot we have right now is not really an observation lot. It's a piece of pavement that had been there that had a sign stuck in front of it and called it an observation lot. Yeah, and it, you can watch aircraft come and go. It is fine, but it's not really the best place. If you have children with you, you want to get out and look at the aircraft from the fence, you've got to always be mindful of them. And then getting out of it is not that comfortable either. It's pretty tight. So that's included as an enabling project for that. And apologies. Thought I'd slide on closure of 1432. The closure of 1432 is also underway. We've closed it permanently. It's not going to be opening back up. With that, we're going to be straightening out Robin Hood Road and closing off 1432 and removing the pavement. What that's going to do is going to create 15 acres of developable land to the west side of Robin Hood and 15 acres to the east. So that's it. That all went through the review process with the FAA. Took about 18 months. They gave us the permission to do so. It's been included on our airport layout plan for 40 some odd years, all with the thought that we might have a parallel runway, but that's not going to be happening anytime soon. But regardless, that crosswind runway was only used for 400 departures and 400 arrivals a year, and 365 of those departures and 365 of those arrivals were a FedEx Caravan aircraft that took it for convenience and went down to the Outer Banks to drop off people's golf clubs for the week. And so anyways, it's really not an asset that's used, and we feel like we've got better opportunities there. Additionally, in front of the rideshare lot, we're going to have about 1.3 acres of developable property there. We've test fit it for a convenience store and some gas pumps, and if 50% of our traffic is coming off of the interstate onto Robin Hood and they're headed to the rental car return facility, that last stop right there to top off your tank, grab a bite to eat, seems like a pretty useful approach to that property. So those are obviously very important. Conrac's very important. Intersection is important. The terminal development is really the thing that we're working very, very hard to right size, to value, manage in terms of cost and scope. But we've got a few key things we need to address. One is a new ticket lobby addition. Our lobbies are very cramped in terms of depth and height, and they lack sunlight, because we have about 6 feet of concrete and a 1.5-foot transom window. So there's a lot of things, not just operationally, but aesthetically about it that we think we can improve on. We're also going to be consolidating the check bag inspection area, which behind the scenes, after you drop your bag off, we only have approximately 20,000 square feet to take in all of those bags, and we need 60,000. If you were to program it today, we need 60,000 square feet. We only have 200 linear feet of bag belts to take the bags off and put them on the cart and get them to the aircraft. If you program it today, we need about 450 to 500 linear feet. So that staff for years has done a tremendous job making sure your bags get to the aircraft, but it is not a pretty sight to go down there in the morning. So we need to improve that for them. Shipping and receiving, yes, is important. It's more behind the scenes type of thing for us, but also the consolidated checkpoint. We have the Alpha and the Bravo checkpoint that currently there's no flexibility for the airlines, and as a passenger, you're very limited in your resources and options as well. So we're looking to bring that into the main lobby environment where we'll still have the meters and greeters available to welcome home passengers. There'll still be that environment that our users very much like, but there'll be much more flexibility and efficiency for the TSA also. So we're looking to start construction on some interior work focused on concessions in the summer of 2026, as well as the checkpoint. We think overall, that project will be completed towards the end of 2028. Total program cost for that is, construction costs, soft costs, all things in, is $350 million. And just real quick, and just to emphasize the pressure on the terminal, when just a couple years after the current terminal opened, we had 1.5 million total passengers. And like I said, we're about to cross the 5 million mark. Along the way, we did take and expand into arrivals for baggage claim. When we did that, we had 3 million passengers total. So, again, we're at 5 million right now. We've got a lot of pressure on that terminal facility. And just a few images of what the facility will look like. This is the main lobby expansion. We are just moving that terminal to the east. I apologize, to the west. And it's about an 80-foot expansion. This is what the interior will look like. So again, a lot more light, modern facility, something I think that most airport users expect to see in today's age. And this is the main lobby, just kind of showing the consolidated checkpoint after the fact, but also we're going to have some concessions still, pre-security. We'll have some seating for meeters and greeters there. So all that to show kind of what we have to do to support those projects with the FAA is the airport layout plan. I can't move forward with these projects if they have not been approved by the FAA on the airport layout plan and by the state Department of Aviation on the airport layout plan as well. And I can't move forward with them if I don't have the appropriate level of NEPA. So we have all of that from the FAA and the state at this point in time. And we have an approved airport layout plan. So I'll show you what that looks like. But a little bit about the airport layout plan. It comes along with a master plan update. The master plan update is supposed to be done about every 10 years. And in that process, ends up being a 500-page document. The FAA approves two things. One is our forecast that can and should be used to right-size the facility. Also, it can be used to support or not support a parallel runway, because you forecast enplanements for the terminal, you forecast operations for your airfield capacity, right? So the FAA has to approve the forecast first and foremost. From that, you go into different chapters of existing conditions, different possible outcomes, and then you create one airport layout plan sheet, and they sign and approve that as well. That's it. Over 2 years, in 500 pages, they approve 2 items in that entire document. But between, everything changes. I'm sure you're dealing with issues in the city that change on a daily and hourly basis. I can't wait 10 years to do something. So between master plan updates, they have pen and ink revisions. And it's not too much different than what you have to go through for the master plan update. You still have to point out exactly what's changing from the first time they signed the master plan, why you want to change it, and explain it to them. They review it. They have about 14 agencies in the FAA that review it. And if they don't sign off on it, you don't get it approved. So that's generally what we'll go through every 10 years. And like I said, everything that I presented today has been approved. So this is the sheet, and it's very busy, and I know this is hard to see, but we do have, like I said, all the facilities on it. That terminal and intersection and runway closure has been on the ALP for 20 years. The intersection's been on it for even longer. The closure of the crosswind runway's been on it for about 40 years. The CONRAC has also been approved by the FAA. Interestingly enough, because of the usage type and because of the way it's funded, they actually don't have authorization to provide any input on that project. But I have to get that determination from them even still. And without even that determination, they won't sign this ALP sheet. So there's still an approval, but they don't tie other strings to it once we start construction and start funding it. And like I said, the rideshare lot is also on there. So this is the result of the master planning process. This is the result of Mark Perriman coming in with a new vision. It's been reviewed by the FAA and the state and approved and signed. And that's my presentation for today. I know it was quick and I know it was a bit rambling all over the place, but I'm happy to answer any questions you may have today.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Do you have any questions?
The only thing you didn't talk about was the new, I guess it's the customs, right? You have an international that's under construction now?
We do, it's under construction right now. Yes, correct. We expect it to open just in time for the Breeze launch. It should open, we're looking at early January. We're doing the punch list January, I think it's 4th or 8th, I can't recall exactly, but they'll depart on the 10th and then they come back on the 17th. They won't use that facility until the 17th, but it should be.
You already booked tickets to Cancun on Breeze, so we're waiting.
Oh, good, yeah. Well, I hope you get to use the complete facility when it's ready.
Excellent, excellent presentation.
Any other questions? I did have a question, and it's selfish because I do a bit of traveling here lately. The construction, do you foresee it causing any delays of folks coming in or out currently?
I do not.
Okay.
You know, there will be certainly actual delays in terms of, you're gonna go through a construction site for the intersection. It won't be as quick as it is today, it won't be as quick as it is when it's done. So you will probably hit an extra light cycle where you might have to wait for something to happen there. But in terms of impacting departure and arrival times, no.
With traffic coming in and out?
Yeah, just navigating a roadway project of that scale and complexity is gonna have a little bit of an impact, but I wouldn't suggest that it's gonna be anything we need to try and leave half hour early. And then even the terminal project is gonna have so many phases attached to it that it will cause it to drag out, just like the intersection is gonna be taking a little bit longer than it would if it were a lovely green field. But we have to operate 24/7. Again, something you are very familiar with. And so it's gonna extend the inconvenience and the impact of it, but at this point in time, there's really no reason for anyone to expect that departure and arrival times will be impacted.
So we all just need to leave a little earlier then. To get to the airport, yeah.
I have one last question,
Sure.
and this comes from Slim. Slim is the oldest taxi driver coming in and out of the airport. And you just realigned the Lyft and the Uber to where the taxi used to be, and you push them further down.
Correct.
Is that gonna remain in the overall master plan?
Yes.
It is.
It is.
So Slim's just gonna be further down. And there was a reasoning behind that was for stacking of the taxi.
Yeah, the reason behind it was,
Everyone's using
and they were in the center.
Yeah.
But they do about 10% of the pickups these days. And they have a queue length that wasn't allowing for the rideshare companies to get to their passengers, and it was stacking into the adjacent lane. And there's only 2 lanes on the outer curb, and so it was causing some flow problems.
So is it gonna be realigned with more lanes for the Uber and the Lyft, and is that gonna change at all, or is that gonna remain?
Yeah, it'll stay the same.
I told him I'd ask, I just.
Understood.
Well, thank you. Great presentation. Looking forward to all of this. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Madam Chair, if I can.
Anything else?
So along with this, as Anthony had noted, that there are some material changes to the road network as well as potential development opportunities. Once we can get this adopted or approved or voted resolution by City Council with a recommendation from the Commission, we can then do zoning ordinance text amendments that will need to be done to help facilitate the master plan. So this is kind of step one, and we'll just kind of help try to keep pushing them along because there will be that newer private development that, as you saw on Robin Hood Road, as well as there's some legacy language in the zoning ordinance talking about how the they need to maintain all the trees and all this stuff, but the trees and planes don't quite get along very well. And so it's very, we know what was meant by those words, but it's not what the words say. So we've got to go in there and kind of clean up some of the language. So that will be further down once we get the resolution approved.
So, quick question, because I appreciate the master plan, but the trees have already been leveled, they didn't come in front of us for that to begin with.
Correct. And they did not have to. So the key is, and this was the understanding that we had when they did the rideshare parking lot, was that the intent of that language was to assure that you don't do the perimeter, which buffered it from the residential.
Gotcha, okay.
And so that was the important part. That other stuff was actually right near.
So are we actually approving anything, or are we just getting information so that we can be up
Right
to
now,
speed?
there is action to make a recommendation on a resolution that city council will have to approve. Adam, do you know?
The short answer is yes, there will have to be an approval. For better or for worse, the zoning that regulates the land where the airport and all the operations related to it is located is a unique zoning district. It's the airport zoning district, so it doesn't apply anywhere else in the city, and it has its own set of rules. It has some permissions that are more accommodating than they would be in a regular commercial area or industrial area. But there is a set of regulations that come along with the airport district, so there will have to be an approval to incorporate the plan and then to make any accommodations, it would be the appropriate term, I think, in the language of the zoning district, so that what's shown in the plan is permitted under the regs.
Thanks, Tom.
Well, thank you.
Good, thank you, appreciate it.
Let's get into our public hearing preview.
Good afternoon. I have one design review recommendation for you for construction of a new HVAC at the Largemont Library. So here's some of the existing site photographs. The applicant's proposing to install a new HVAC equipment and construct a masonry screening enclosure clad in brick to screen those new mechanical units. The proposed location is on the north elevation, which is along the side of the building, and that photo on the right. Here's the site plan. And then the new work plan. So this screening enclosure will be situated 7 feet and 8 inches off of the existing library building. It will measure 22 feet in length, 15 feet and 4 inches in width, and 7 feet and 8 inches in height. 3 of the sides of the enclosure will consist of a masonry wall clad in brick to match the existing building, and the wall will be capped with the precast concrete. Here's the elevations for that. And then the side facing the building will have a 7-foot tall galvanized chain link fence. And the existing entrance, including the concrete stairs and landing on that side elevation, will remain. And there's some refrigerant piping that will be installed into the existing wall next to that side entrance. And then here's some of the additional details. And then rendering of the existing conditions. And then the proposed, the new enclosure will be screened with evergreen shrubs planted in mulch beds. And the exact plant of the species hasn't been selected, but it's expected to match the existing foundation plantings in type and spacing. And then those views again. And ARB did recommend approval with 2 conditions: that the landscaping extend to screen the new refrigerant piping, so another bush be added. And then the masonry wall include a water table with a simple canted or molded profile to align in line with the building's existing water table. Any questions?
Good afternoon, Commission. This is item number 1, the continued agenda, Harbor Inn conditional use permit. This was continued the past 2 months. As of yesterday, the games of skill were removed, so they are on the agenda for this month. Location east side of Chesapeake Boulevard, south of Eagle Avenue. This is South Bayview neighborhood. And again, this is an existing restaurant, and the applicant wants to add additional gaming positions and open 1 hour earlier. Proposed use is consistent with Plan for 2030. Zoning is CC in this district. A CUP is required for the sale of alcohol on premise after 5 p.m., operating hours past 11, and 5 or more gaming positions. Here's a picture of the site. Restaurant's been in existence since 1977. Applicant took full ownership in 2010. 2014, the restaurant received a special exception for an entertainment establishment that allowed on-premise alcohol sales, operating hours till 2 a.m., and live entertainment, which included a DJ. Here's the floor plan. Existing, you can see the 4 pool tables. Positions 3, 4, 5, and 6 of proposed games of skill. Our city attorney's office has deemed them illegal in accordance with Virginia statutes. And a condition will be added prohibiting games of skill. However, different devices at those positions are okay, as long as they don't fit into that definition. For hours of operation, 1 hour earlier, 8 a.m. to 2 a.m., 7 days a week. Capacity roughly the same, 85 seats indoors, 0 seats outdoors for a total of 91. And the applicant no longer wishes to have live entertainment. And the South Bayview Civic League does support this application. Any questions? Okay. The next 2 items, Kogan's Pizza and Shark Sports Bar, have been requested to be continued till January. January.
Did she get the slats in?
I can't answer that.
Okay. Did she get the slats in?
Did I get the what in?
Did she get the slats in?
I don't know that she did or not. I'll follow up on that, but, yeah.
She was gonna do that this Saturday after we heard her last.
As of the end of last week, she had not.
Oh, okay. Sure.
All right, good afternoon. Just before I get started, just to let you know, the Dropbox, your Dropbox has the updated, everything's up to date in there. It's got the appendices as well for the full plan, so just want to make sure you guys knew about that. We'll also print out copies as well, pretty soon here, so we'll have, hard copies as well, so. But this, of course, is the vote to repeal Plan for 2030 and then adopt NFK 2050. And I'll just note that I'll plan to do a little bit more of a full presentation at the public hearing, so I'll try to keep this one a little shorter, especially because we talked about implementation in detail at the retreat, so we don't need to rehash all of that, so I'll save you all a few minutes. But yeah, I just wanted to go through plan structures, highlight the engagement opportunities and the vision that came out of that, the future land use plan, what that is again, and then just the takeaways from the goals of the plan pillars. So just to show a quick update on the timeline of the whole project. So as you all know, it's about 2-year process. We got started in summer of 2023, and here we are just getting into the fall of 2025. So right on schedule with how we kind of planned out the adoption process with 3 phases. You all know the org chart with the Plan Commission, of course, at the very top. At the end of the day, this is the Planning Commission. It's not just your application, but this is your plan. You all, certainly the legal given this authority by the state to be the champions and the really developers of this plan, and so this is certainly your plan, 100%. So you are at the top, kind of overseeing the process, of course, and we wanted to check in with you at various stages. City of Norfolk and consultants, of course, teamed up to draft everything and kind of manage the project. We had our advisory committee, which met at 4 different stages during the process, big milestones, and kind of gave their recommendations and input to staff and consultants to relay back to the Planning Commission. We also had champions, actually working groups that fed their expertise, their subject matter expertise to us as a project team and the advisory committee. And then we had our champions, of course, who were residents in the city that really helped us reach out, kind of get that last mile of engagement from our team to the public in their neighborhood. So they also helped at various events as well that we were at. The plan structure, so you guys have seen this many times, so pretty typical with what it is, executive summary, how we got to the vision with some community engagement. how that kind of led to the foundation, those aspirational components of the vision, and then how that then led to the plan pillars and how we organize the actions and strategies and goals, future land use plan as well, and then of course the 3 appendices that go into more detail on existing conditions, full community engagement summary, and then the implementation matrix. The pillars, which is where everything is organized under: celebrating our community, growing equitably, embracing nature, and connecting the city. So that's all of our topical goals and actions. So as far as engagement, we had, as you all know, we spent a very long time throughout the entire process trying to hit every event and every corner of the city that we could, in person and virtual methods. So it was really over the course of 2 years. And in total, we had over 150 opportunities to engage. So that's a total of all of the various in-person and virtual opportunities. And we have a map in the plan as well that you see here, just to show geographically really how spread out that was. And then our foundational values. So this is important to show, this is kind of where, through all of our engagement in the first couple of phases that really led to then the draft plan development, where people, where their focuses were and the input that we received. And this sort of led to the development of these aspirational values, or foundational values as we call them, which is essentially the community vision, right? So, we always phrase it as by 2050 Norfolk will be, because that's really the point of the comprehensive plan is, you get started on the work, immediately, and then, you've realized that full vision of the plan by that time horizon. So an equitable city, having a city that provides opportunities for residents of all ages and backgrounds and celebrating those unique backgrounds and stories. A resilient city where we're living in harmony with our natural systems and the environment. We can also withstand future change and bounce back, our resilience. Family city where we have families of all types, all sizes, that want to come here, stay here, take root, and then have different support for all their needs. A regional city that we're, the hub of the region already, but how can we sort of enhance that standing in the region and also work in partnership with our surrounding localities. And then a growing city, using our land efficiently as a built-out city, and how can we grow from this strong roots that we already have in our neighborhoods. So our future land use, and that really helped lead to more so the pillars and the goals and actions, but just in terms of the way that the plan is organized, the future land use map comes first. So I want to just give a quick highlight of that again. So as you all remember, from our, I think it was in April, our deep dive on the future land use map, it's really, it's a map of the community's intentions. So a tool to help make us make decisions about where and how development is appropriate. And it's distinct from a zoning map, of course. So it's not about, what is or isn't permissible. It's not a regulatory document or map, but it helps guide those zoning changes and zoning interventions as well. And it's, basically where and how, a consolidated map of where and how Norfolk will grow in the future. It's made up of 11 distinct place types. So you'll see the matrix in the plan as well that goes through the place types, but also these typical land uses, so that we can then evaluate, and the Planning Commission can evaluate very directly when we get proposals and things, whether it's appropriate, whether it's a primary or secondary use at that location. And so these place types really are, they're a way of thinking about urban form and character that's easier for everyday citizens to understand. There's not, it just feels a little bit more grounded, so to speak. And so they combine land use. Obviously, that's the number one thing. We would need to see what kind of land uses are appropriate here or not appropriate. Community character, types of buildings and amenities, those sorts of things, massing. When you get into urban design and form, that's where you kind of get into how densely to build, how close buildings should be together, those sorts of things as well. So just that general guidance on those things. And then primary uses are, generally, they're uses that are generally appropriate in that place type. They either already exist there or they're generally appropriate in the long-term vision of the city. They, typically are permitted by right, or they might be permitted as a, through an entitlement process or a discretionary approval. But generally speaking, they're uses that are like already there, or we've sort of, in our documents and plans, they've been deemed kind of appropriate at those locations. And then for secondary uses, those are, typically uses that so they may be appropriate under the right circumstances. So that's where you get into, they're either allowed through that entitlement process like a CUP, or they might require alterations to our zoning regulations to allow them through an entitlement process. So, but generally they might be appropriate there based on existing conditions and again, our plans. So, the way we kind of look at those are, evaluating the context of that area and the specific characteristics of the parcel, but looking at things like the alignment with the long-range vision of the plan and the area, if there's any area plan for that particular property or parcel, looking at neighborhood development patterns in the greater area, and then operational impacts and that sort of thing. So just builds in some more flexibility with the land uses. And then just really quickly, the sustained place types, since that's a really new thing, there are areas that sort of, people or developers, property owners, what have you, can look to their surrounding context, the character district that they're located in. That's really the framework of the sustained place types, was very much the character districts. So coastal, traditional, and suburban. That's how they were sort of geographically designated. And then we can also look at our plan books and pattern books for guidance as well to see what kind of growth is expected there. And then, they're just, in general areas, a way of classifying the areas that we don't see a lot of growth in, but there are some gentle, infill growth that can happen there in the context of that community. And, as far as like non-residential uses there, there's some guidance in there about, how that can be appropriate along sort of like arterials, collector streets, these like larger roadways to preserve some of the neighborhood interiors. These kind of non-residential uses should be smaller in scale, neighborhood serving type uses. And we have zoning districts, of course, that like CN, community, neighborhood, commercial, that, are right in line with some of these principles. So again, but really just focusing on trying to build off of our existing character districts to kind of guide our decisions on what's appropriate there. And then I mentioned, just a snapshot again of the pillars, the goals. So for Celebrating Our Community, it's, where all those kind of quality of life, placemaking goals and actions live, where we, historic preservation, historic resources, branding, that sort of thing. Also, complete and healthy neighborhoods. That's where a lot of our public health policies are located. Infill development, again, pattern books, the character of new development or rehabs or existing or renovations of properties, infill properties, and then just mixed use development, activating first floor uses, and then support safe, public safety. That's where those actions are as well, and then our community facilities and services, those types of actions, like what to do with public buildings and considerations, for long-term use of facilities and, kind of aligning with future needs and things like that. Growing equitably is where all the housing and economic development actions live. So, supporting that housing market for all residents and, really builds a lot off of, especially Goal 1, is really derives directly from the housing strategic plan, the Affordable Housing Strategic Plan. And then also just in general, increasing housing production across all income levels, just increasing production and having some more flexibility for the adapting, changing population needs that we all are aware of. So building in that, exploring some ways of being more flexible with that. As far as the economic development, growing and diversifying the economy, strengthening what we have, the existing industries that we have, and that we have, had found a lot of success with, but also diversifying as well. And then supporting local workforce development pipelines. So it's, partnering with our educational institutions at all levels and training programs and things like that. Embracing nature, of course, where all of our environmental protection, resilience, sustainability, also, waterfront access, green infrastructure, blue infrastructure, all those actions live there. So really, first and foremost, protecting the environment, especially our Chesapeake Bay preservation areas. We had the presentation recently on that. So just continuing to kind of enhance those regulations and meet the state requirements for that. And then just continuing to build out that green and blue infrastructure network. So, the green infrastructure plan, of course, was a big influence for this, and, just putting some of those policies directly in here as well. Protecting and adapting communities from flooding. So, again, some of these more resilient policies, the CSRM project is mentioned in here. Sort of the more protection side of it. And then integrating resilience and capital infrastructure planning, more green infrastructure with public facilities. And then just in general supporting kind of like a across-the-board approach to building resilience through internal and external stakeholders. And then finally connecting the city, the transportation and mobility actions. So, whether that's kind of promoting our multimodal culture through strengthening efforts we're already doing, and then the actual infrastructure building out that multimodal network. So kind of separate those goals. So improving that inner city kind of travel and connecting our neighborhoods better, improving safety wherever we can, especially along those higher volume corridors, and then protecting the actual infrastructure itself. So that's kind of where some of the resilient actions come into play in this pillar, is protecting our transportation network, making sure it's resilient and kind of respond to these different natural events like flooding or a storm. And then, of course, our utility and broadband infrastructure as well. And then supporting regional, national, and even international connections. So this is where actions about supporting the master plan for the airport would live. So, and then implementation, I mentioned, we did go through this in great detail, so I will not go through the full description, but just kind of going through again the different tools that we use to implement a comprehensive plan, how we collaborate with different departments, and then how we plan to measure success with the metrics and different reporting and things like that. We're by state law, we're required to evaluate at least every 5 years to do kind of a full evaluation and update of the plan. So that's it. I'm happy to take questions though.
Is that enough, Dr. Wembley, or do you want the whole plan?
I like it expanded a little. Spend a little more time.
Yeah.
You did a great job.
Thank you.
And I didn't catch you reading us the PowerPoint at all. I was very impressed.
I think he has the whole plan memorized.
I think so too.
I need to go through it 600 pages.
Madam Chair, there's unfortunately, my fault, miscommunication with staff. So we will assure you that you have a hard copy of the plan, and we'll have it delivered to you.
So that's different from what we already have.
You already have in your Dropbox. If you don't
I
want,
mean, we have a hard copy.
It's been updated quite a bit.
That's the draft.
yes. So this is the finalized, the public hearing draft copy. We want to make sure you have it in your hand. And any changes from here forward would either have to be recommended by the commission and documented as such, and then recommended to city council. So we're just trying to make sure you have the clean copy for you. So we'll ensure we get them printed as soon as possible. Hopefully within the next couple of days, early next week, we'll have it delivered to your to you.
So not to be a nudge, but just a small tweak. Now that we just saw the master plan for the airport, which is already changing your land use plan, would you take that or would you just leave it? Because what they're doing with the Robin Road extension changes.
So it's not changing the land use plan. So the land use plan, as we've done, as Chris noted, it's not labeling the use of the lands anymore. That's what it used to do. It's much more broader and having uses, primary and secondary uses that support the uses there. So everything that was said is either a primary or secondary use to the airport.
Looks like your secondary fell right into that, so it still works.
Yes, it still works.
Excellent.
Yeah, a good example is like the airport, it's the place type is transportation and logistics, and we have the secondary uses like a large scale multifamily. Whichever, hotel or something. So, but they also cover offices and other things, retail as well. So.
Key is we wanted flexibility. We don't want to sit here and say, oh, that says it's commercial, you can't put any residential there. right? We wanted to ensure that there was this ability to look at it and go, well, what's appropriate to the use that's there, and what should we allow there?
The matrix is outstanding, and it's to put it all into one place. Nice job. There'll be a red house.
Thank you, yeah, of course, yeah.
What kind of party is this gonna be after this is all approved?
That's agreement.
You're taking that breeze flight to Cancun.
That's right.
Alright, our next is for a text amendment to permit short and long-term rental of houseboats for marinas subject to performance standards. We've got an applicant that has requested that this is added to marinas. Before I go to our kind of draft performance standards, just a kind of explanation of what they're looking for. These are, the easiest description, I guess, would be like think of the cabin you might find at a campground, but floating. So it's, it's not a boat per se, like that you would take somewhere. They usually don't have motors themselves. It's just a barge with, kind of a sleeping quarters on top of it. So that's kind of what their thought is. We've discussed, there's a lot of words here, I'm not gonna read them all. There's a lot of different things. The idea is that we allow it by right as a marina with some kind of guardrails here. The important things I want to point out is we want to limit it to marinas that are large marinas. Right now we're looking at about 250 slips, and then saying that there's a maximum number of those slips. Right now it's about 5%. What that means is I think there's 2 in the city that fit that category. That's roughly about 255 and about 300 slips. So we're talking about a dozen houseboats at one of those marinas. And then we'll do some things, just some tracking stuff for it, registration, and just to maintain that, some requirements that they follow all the state and federal laws for things that float. Any questions or concerns about it?
I do have a question about C, all houseboats shall be owned and managed exclusively by the marina, so could they list it on Airbnb or something like that?
Yeah, they can list it wherever they want. The thought though is, right now, at probably any marina, you have somebody that owns a boat that lives on their boat, but they're not renting them out. So this would be the marina themselves operating these, not just random people renting a slip, putting a boat there and renting it out.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
So for D, aren't these houseboats gonna be rented for multiple days?
Yes. So the thought on that is similar to a motel or hotel where you've got potentially a large number of people that are staying there that may not be familiar with the area or anything like that. You've got somebody there in case something happens. If your toilet breaks, or you've got a concern, or you get hurt or something like that, that there's somebody there that can assist them.
So these are, okay, I thought they were houseboats that went out.
No.
But they're just in.
They're hotels.
So it's like a hotel.
Yes.
Not nearly as much fun.
Although we did say that's also why we wanted to have someone there, because all of a sudden you end up in the middle of Willoughby Bay and you're someone come help me. So then they don't have motors on them, so they'll have to come get you. So again, just the key here is we didn't want to lean closer to the short-term rental, which is less hands-on. We wanted to ensure that these are fully hands-on by the marina operator, in order to make sure everything's kept in an operating type fashion. So.
So this is my first time seeing the language, and I know we might tweak it.
We know it has to be
We don't
atomized.
have to resolve it today. We don't have to resolve it today, but let me just plant in your mind and Russell's whether the term houseboat is a good term to use. It might be, might be kind of a loaded term that people already associate with something else. And to the extent this doesn't match that exactly, and it's a term of art that you want to use for this, maybe we don't use the term houseboat, but just think about that.
That's a good point.
We could call it something, the houseboat definition in A I got from a state definition.
Okay, so we can think about whether that's the right definition. We can make up a definition. There's any number of ways you could go with it. I just put that there. Whitley's point, if it means more than a houseboat, then maybe we should use a different word.
Outside of Chincoteague, there's a couple of them, they call them botels.
Yeah, I'm thinking of the one in Chincoteague, which I had not seen before until I was there this summer, and I saw these little floating bungalows, and I didn't even think it was floating, it looked like a building, and then I realized it was on pontoons, so it doesn't remind me of a houseboat at all.
I think my confusion was because in our experience, houseboats, you took out on the water.
Right.
That's fair. That's fair. We'll have to take a look at it. The term hotel was utilized in the 92 zoning ordinance as a place to store, dry store boats. And so we didn't use the term hotel. So we call it.
We're going to be anxious in 2 weeks to see that comes out. I can see the little thought balloons going on.
Yeah, you're right, because down in Florida, motels are boat storage.
Yeah.
Facilities, yeah.
Interesting.
To be continued.
Yes, to be determined.
This is more boat-related stuff, but this is tugboat-related. McAllister's Towing, which is a tugboat company, they are requesting a conditional rezoning and a subdivision variance. And the property is at 902 Southampton Avenue and a small portion of 1.22 acre portion of 151 Riverside Avenue. The site is all the way at the end of Southampton Avenue. It is the old M.H. Miles seafood site. And the tugboat company, McAllister's, is proposing to develop an office building and accessory parking, and it would have to go through site plan review. Okay, so the site, the 902 Southampton, that is the blue portion, the IW waterfront. Tugboat would be allowed now. I don't know if, probably no, this was quite some time ago. We had yet another residential development proposed along the waterfront. That's where the DFN comes in, the downtown Fort Norfolk. They were proposing a residential development. That is not happening, so this applicant is proposing to take the 1.22 acre portion of the, called the purple, and add it to the IW site. And so the whole thing would be conditionally rezoned to allow for the tugboat company. The other part of that I mentioned was a subdivision variance. We require all parcels to have frontage on a right-of-way. You can see this parcel does not have a frontage on a right-of-way. The blue, the IW parcel was created in 1941, and it did not have any frontage at that time. There is a private road that runs from Southampton to the blue site. It still is intact. But because we are subdividing, or they are proposing to subdivide and add an additional portion, they need that subdivision variance. Okay. I wanted you to see on an aerial, very approximately, where they are increasing the size of the parcel. That yellow line kind of represents where the new property line would be. Okay. This is a conditional rezoning, and the proffered sites really go to some additional improvements that would be made. I mentioned it has to go through site plan review, but the other things that they are proposing would be a landscape buffer. So you can see on the right-hand side of the slide, that little building there, that's actually the, I think it's Riverview Condos. They are proposing a landscape buffer between the property lines there. They are indicating that the primary building will not exceed 10,000 square feet. And then the applicant is also proposing shoreline improvements on the north side, living shoreline, and then a bulkhead kind of on the north and northwest portion of the site, and then on the south side of the site, some riprap. Any questions on this one?
Yeah, so what kind of building are they put there?
It's an office building they're proposing.
Oh,
Very small one for their tugboat operations.
It's a,
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. The next site is 1917 East Ocean View. The applicant is Brian Grace. He's proposing to rezone an old pump station to community commercial to allow a food vendor park. With the rezoning, we want to look at the future land use map. The site is designated residential mix in Plan Norfolk 2030. So we want to see uses here that are a mix of small-scale, community-oriented uses and residential. And a food vendor park, which is just a site where he's going to have some food trucks and picnic tables, does qualify as a residential mix development. It's owned RC. The use is permitted by right in the CC district, which is what he's proposing to rezone to. Here's a picture of the site. So the site plan is on the next slide. There was a meeting with the applicant who owns the property yesterday. He made some revisions to his site plan, but I want to kind of just walk through his vision here, because I think it's a little easier to visualize on the picture here rather than on the site plan, and you'll see why in a second. So the applicant is going to have a driveway installed that's going to extend over to the left to allow for vehicles to park and turn. And continuing straight back, he's going to put a food truck. And then on the right-hand side, he's going to have some picnic tables for people to sit at. He's currently working with Bold Mariner to potentially see it's right next to Bold Mariner, to see if there would be any agreement to maybe take down the fence between their sites or walkways or something like that. I don't know where those discussions are at the moment.
Not very far.
Yeah.
He said, he told us yesterday, he said he hadn't heard back.
So this is the site plan. You can see the area outlined in yellow. That looks kind of rectangular with a T. That would be paved for the vehicles to drive on. The area on the left would be the picnic tables, and you have a trash receptacle as well. The applicant indicated yesterday that this is more of a temporary plan. The plan hopefully eventually would be to build a house here. If he wanted to do that, he would have to come back and rezone the property again.
Does the property actually do that, so it goes into the other neighboring lot? Only 20 feet? Looks,
This is all,
This is all the same lot.
that should.
The yellow outline is the paving.
gotcha, okay.
And where would the food truck?
Towards the back.
That 20 foot.
It says proposed asphalt food truck parking spot.
And the rest is all picnic tables?
Picnic tables, landscaping, grassy area.
He is also proposing, and it'll be on his revised site plan, probably a bathroom. And he wants to do like a pergola maybe around it, and then he has to build a trash enclosure.
So I see proposed water line and proposed sewer line. Is that because of the bathroom, or is that for the vehicles to?
He wants to set it up now for future use, but no, because the bathroom is just gonna be a porta potty.
Yeah, for food vendor park, the condition, you would need a conditional use permit for that use if you're building a permanent structure or operating between 10 and 7. He doesn't want to do that. He doesn't want to put a permanent structure on this site because again, his future plan is to develop it in some other way.
And it's just the one truck.
So the sanitary connection and the water connection is just for the food truck, it's not for the porta potty. Is that what you're saying?
And he said 1 or 2. He really, his vision is to have an ice cream truck there, to be honest. That's what he talked about yesterday.
1 or 2 food trucks, is that what you? And would there be just one food truck to be there the whole time, or is it different people get?
Different.
Just like they do at breweries?
Yeah.
The community did support it.
He's socially civically supported. No, sorry, Cottage Line. This is Cottage Line.
Any other questions?
Alright, we have one more conditional rezoning. Applicant is East Beach Square LLC. Address is 9523 and 9527 22nd Bay Street. This was withdrawn from last month's agenda. To change the result of the rezoning from CC Community Commercial to CR Regional Commercial. The staff and the applicant felt it'd be best for the new zoning designation to match the shopping center of East Beach Square, which is CR Regional Commercial. Location west side of 22nd Bay Street between 21st Bay Street and Shore Drive. This is an East Ocean View neighborhood. currently vacant, and proposals, again, conditional rezoning RC to CR, and they want to allow for an outdoor amenity area for the tenants and patrons of the shopping center. Proposed use is consistent, designates as residential mixed. Residential mix supports mixed-use development in appropriate locations. As I mentioned, conditional rezoning RC to CR. Here's a picture of what the site currently is now. Currently is 2 vacant lots being used as a playground and workout area for 2 tenants in the shopping center. Here's a rendering of the bird's eye view. And more of a ground level view. This is unrelated to the rezoning, but this is part of a pedestrian connection between the shopping center and 22nd Bay Street. The applicant did provide 3 proposed proffers. For the first one, the southern 20 feet of the southern parcel at 22nd Bay Street shall not be included. The reason for this is the owner plans to sell and subdivide that 20 feet of the southern area for a future parking lot. Hours of operation, the amenity area should only be from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 7 days a week. And no persons other than tenants and patrons of the shopping center shall use the amenity area.
So,
I wasn't quite that.
go ahead. Yeah, just because you said no patrons of the shopping center or employees, so the adjacent property, so when they presented to the Civic League, it was going to be utilized by Culver Brewery as well. Is that not part of the plan? When Brian gave the pitch to the Civic League, he said it was gonna be open so that anything that's going on in Culver could also use that facility.
I'll have to read off
You
of
said
that.
Brian on that one.
I have not heard, all I heard was tenants of the shopping center.
They proffered these conditions,
They gave these to us. Proffered conditions are given to us, so we'll have to follow up and understand, because again, we weren't at the civic meeting, so.
I had the concept plan, which for some reason didn't make it to the PowerPoint. I did want to point out that I did receive one letter of concern. A neighbor who was worried about potential elevated noise for the amenity area, and he did not want alcohol being served at this area as well. He does support the use as a family-friendly, kind of oriented, but those are 2 of his concerns.
And they can't do alcohol there, because they haven't applied to have alcohol.
Correct. And East Ocean specifically does, they stated they do not oppose the application.
They said they did not,
They do not oppose the application.
not oppose, I was gonna say.
That word-
I'm sorry.
They do not oppose the application.
Oh.
I should have worded the way they worded it, so.
Sure, it looks strange out there that social view.
They all word them different ways, and I don't wanna word it myself, so.
Good question.
And Andrew, when you said the 20 feet is not included, it's not included as part of the amenity area, but it is gonna be part of the rezoning.
I'm curious how they're gonna enforce, who's gonna use it.
Wristbands.
I would imagine there'd be a sign, but instead of that, I'm not sure.
It's not my problem, but just was curious about it.
As far as alcohol, like it's being consumed there, it wouldn't be sold there. I imagine there'll be signs or something, no alcohol.
Yeah, well,
ABC,
ABC wouldn't allow them to. Some people would be in violation of their ABC license if they did that.
in public, yeah.
But there would be signs that say no alcohol beyond this point where it can be versus.
They would have to proffer that, we couldn't require that, it's drinking in public is what it is. The spaces where you see people allowed to have alcohol outside, like in an outdoor dining area, are expressly approved through the ABC process, and they have to be fenced and meet certain rules about who can come and go and how they can come and go in order to be eligible to be included under the permit of the attached building. But here, you're not attached to anything, you don't have an affiliated ABC user, so it would just be illegal drinking in public if people were to drink there. But they wouldn't be required to post a sign, unless that shows up as a condition.
Thank you.
ABC supportive. So this is a conditional use permit. The site is 1700 Kingston Avenue. I think some of you have visited this site with us before. It is on the north side of Kingston, between Beaumont Street and Grove Avenue. It is a residential building. It was originally developed as an 8-unit apartment building. And the applicant is proposing to convert it to a duplex. that is a permitted use, but they do need a conditional use permit to allow construction that does not meet the development and form standards. So the residential would comply with Plan Norfolk 2030. As I mentioned, the zoning is RC. It is also in a noise zone, and it also is in an accident potential zone. And again, the request is not for the duplex, but to modify the intensity and dimensional standards for a two-family dwelling unit in the RC zoning district. So just a little bit of history. Again, as I mentioned, the building was built as an 8-unit apartment building. It was vacant for many years. So the current zoning, the RC, does not allow that use. It doesn't have enough width, doesn't have enough size, doesn't have enough parking. A prior owner did, you could submit a request to reestablish it as an 8-unit apartment building. They lost, they went to BZA, they lost, Planning Commission, City Council, and also court. They lost the use of the building as an 8-unit building. The next applicant, and some of you may have been here for this, was to convert it to a 4-plex. That was also denied by the Planning Commission, City Council. We also did have opposition from the community as well as from the Navy. So again, the current use is to convert it to a duplex. Okay. The first floor would be one apartment with 6 bedrooms, and then the second floor would be one apartment with 5 bedrooms. Again, two units. And thanks to Bobby, RC is probably the most complicated zoning district we have. So in the RC district, there are limited uses you could do by right. Go out and build them today. One of those uses is a duplex. However, if you want to do a duplex by right, you need 50 feet minimum lot width and 7,500 square feet. He does not have 7,500 square feet. So if you don't have that, then you go into what we call the alternative development standards. And the alternative development standards would allow you to build a duplex, or have a duplex, I should say, on a lot that is 50 feet wide and 5,000 square feet large. That he does have, but there's also a whole other host of development standards you have to meet. And I'll go over those quickly. It has to be 1.5 stories, 48 square feet, minimum 6 foot of porches. Attached garages may have doors facing on ocean view, provided they are set back 40 feet. First floor areas may be used as a garage. All facades shall have fenestration that are balanced with the building design and exterior elevation. Parking shall be provided at 2 spaces per dwelling unit. Parking areas shall be screened from view from the right-of-way, and parking spaces shall meet the minimum dimensional standards. However, may be located within garages and driveways that are not part of the common ingress and egress for the development. Stacked spaces may count towards meeting the parking requirements. However, 1 parking space per dwelling unit must be unobstructed. So those are all of the development standards. So when we take a look at this building, it does not comply with 3 of those development standards. So one is the one driveway shall be permitted for the development at a minimum of 12 feet in width per frontage. As the site plan showed, they actually have 2 driveways. They've got one in the front that backs right out into Kingston, and there is a street, actually let me go back to the picture right there. Right next to the building, that is actually a street. Further down that street, there is a detached structure that goes along with this building. Their other parking would be in front of that, so again, that would technically be the second driveway. So they don't comply with that development standard.
So,
Whoop.
just real quick, I know that there's a lot of shoehorning of this into something else, but the point of these standards was the inverse of what we're looking at now. The point of these standards were to allow people to do development that meets a certain type, as a certain development standard on a smaller lot. So you get something, we get something. The hard part is that in order for them to make this use work, they have to also meet this requirement, which is why it's being listed out here. If not, it wouldn't be permitted at all. So it does feel a little backwards or it feels odd to look at it in the inverse, but this is how they're able to find a way to reutilize the building. So I wish it worked a little bit better. As Susan said, this one's my fault. I spent like a month on
And
this.
the other standard is all facades shall have fenestration that are balanced with the building design and exterior elevation. So the facade fronting Kingston does not have any fenestration. And then parking areas shall be screened from view from the right of way. So again, that one up front does not comply with that. So the way you get out of all of those development standards is to apply for a conditional use permit. So that is why they're here. They're applying for a conditional use permit to get essentially waivers from those development standards in the alternative development standards. And again, I just pointing out that each floor previously, it was an 8-unit, so I think it was 4 and 4. Again, there are 6 bedrooms in one apartment and 5 bedrooms in another. That's probably more than any apartment building we have throughout the city. It's a lot of bedrooms to have in each apartment. Just pointing that out.
Did they say how many bathrooms?
They're working on revising their floor plans now to make sure they meet building code, so we don't have the final floor plans, but I'm guessing there's probably gonna be more than 1 bathroom per floor.
So you noted that it was likely to be a group home.
So
So
they are
since-
telling us that the first floor is gonna be a group home.
So it would seem like this is gonna be a neighborhood issue too.
And the neighborhood is not supporting this.
Key, though, we'll make sure to clarify is that the group home is not in question. Group home, by the Code of Virginia, we're required to allow group homes wherever we allow a dwelling unit, as long as it meets certain criteria, which is essentially up to 8 people and they are licensed. And so if they meet that criteria, it's not of any question of whether we can permit that or not. So this is essentially just assuring should this be brought back online? Right now, it's, as Susan said, it's been vacant for a very long time. And so is it appropriate to bring it back online as a 2-unit building?
I was thinking more in terms of the neighborhood response.
Yes, we heard that very early, unfortunately.
And this is the same owner from,
No, different owner,
oh, this is not from when we looked at it before.
another different owner. The owner of this does group homes, that's why they want.
Gotcha, okay. Any other questions? Thank you, Susan.
Alright. So our next one is the Green Clean Auto Wash, 3600 Tidewater Drive. This is currently a vacant former Rite Aid building, and they are looking to convert it to a car wash. The use is consistent as commercial. It needs a CUP in the CC district. So here's the site as it is today. Here is their layout. You can kind of see on the top side of the building how they want their flow to be. This will be primarily accessed from Tidewater Drive, although you can get there through the bank building on the bottom. But primarily it will be coming in off their Tidewater Drive. You'll come to the pay station, which will be kind of to the top right, and then wrap through, you'll go through the building, and the car wash will be inside the existing building. And then those gray spaces you see as well as the second section you see in the building with the arrow coming back this way will be where you'll find the vacuums and everything. There are the elevations. As you see on the top left one, there's 2 garage doors. That's how you'll get in and out of the building. Any questions?
Could you go back? I'd like to see those arrows again.
So just to add one additional point of information, the reason why they are doing it this way is because they want to continue to maintain the existing building. That is not a new building.
So it looks like they've got 2 car washes. They
Yeah.
go one way or the other way.
One car wash, as Russell said. Russell, you want to explain it again?
Could you,
I'll
yes.
take that. So they're coming through the car wash here, and then coming around, and there'll be vacuums, I think, in here.
Oh,
They're going back through the building.
Okay.
Vacuums are on the side.
Also,
Okay.
Okay, so the roof stays,
so close.
they're just cutting open the walls, leaving the structure, and just,
It'd be good if it's raining, you can still.
They're covered though.
Has done this before. I think they have a location in Chesapeake. They've done this exact same thing too.
Battlefield Boulevard.
Have anybody done these before?
I have,
Like
I did
this?
too, I just did one this week.
I love it.
It was awesome, but it was creepy because I had to put it in my car in neutral and then it just went black. And then all these colors and I'm thinking, wow. It was scary, but it was awesome. I mean, my car was, and I love the free vacuum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As long as you want. I mean, you can vacuum for, it's not 5 minutes.
Yes, and it's paid for, you know, it's part of the deal, yeah. Yeah, that stupid thing where you have to put the coins in.
That never works. Never. Thank you, Russ.
So our next one is Ocean Hand Car Wash, 7900 Chesapeake Boulevard. This is the corner of Chesapeake and Little Creek. They're also looking to operate a car wash. It's consistent as commercial with future land use. They need the CUP for that car wash and CC. So here's the site. You can see in that red box there, there's a building that says car wash on it. That building was an automated car wash years ago that operated with the Shell station. It has been out of use for more than 2 years, so they no longer have their ability to use that without a new CUP. We're not looking at any sort of site improvements for that.
Thank you.
Last car wash.
Russell has them all today. Clean car, Russell.
This is at 2750 North Military Highway. It's Military Highway near Croft Street. This is almost exactly the same situation as the one I just talked about. Consistent commercial, needs CUP and CC. In the red box there, you'll see that car wash building in the back. Same thing, it was an automated car wash. Hasn't been one for more than 2 years. They need a CUP to do it again. We're working on getting the site cleaned up a little bit, but mostly things that
are going to be outside of the CUP process, so there's not going to be any additional improvements with this one as well. Any questions on that one?
It's a stupid question. So they were automated, but they won't be automated anymore?
Correct. In both instances,
Using it as a garage to wash cars.
in both instances, they've removed the equipment. You'll drive your car in, they'll wash your car inside the building, and they'll drive it out where they have vacuums, and they'll
It still has the drainage in the floor.
I presume so. I can find out exactly how that's going to work, but
That would be important because the grease interceptor for car washes is somewhat unique. And anything that's coming off the road, the cars would be contained if not, otherwise it's just running out into, okay.
I will.
Interesting.
Thank you.
That's on the agenda. I don't store it. It's 7712
And 7728 Hampton Boulevard. It's on the east side of Hampton, north of Little Creek. It's currently a vacant commercial shopping center, and the proposal is to develop a principal structure larger than 30,000 square feet. The use is consistent with Plan Office 2030, designated as commercial. Property zone CC. So, in the CC district, there is a condition that states that if you want to build a structure or substantially improve a structure larger than 30,000 square feet, you need a separate conditional use permit from the use. So if this was a use permit like for alcohol, they would need a conditional use permit for that and for this 30,000 square foot building. I know we did a text amendment, or doing a text amendment to make all self-storage units require a conditional use permit. This applicant was vested for it because they applied before that text amendment was put in motion. So this is just a conditional use permit looking at the structure and saying if it can be developed larger than 30,000 square feet. I believe the applicant does have a fallback plan to develop a building less than 30,000 square feet if this doesn't get approved. So this is the building. There were several former users in this facility. And this is what they're proposing as a site plan. I do have some elevations, but I do want to touch on one other aspect of this. There is a project, a smart scale application to improve traffic flow on Hampton Boulevard and Terminal Boulevard in relation to the rail traffic. I believe it's an overpass on Hampton to go over the railroad tracks and Terminal Boulevard there. The project was submitted in 2016. It's not yet funded, but we do include it in Plan Norfolk 2030. That will significantly impact this site. As a proposed condition, we have been working with, requiring the applicant to work with any future planning or funding that comes along with that project. But this site will be impacted by including probably the relocation of some of their proposed landscaping and parking spaces. I just want to make sure we brought that to your attention. This is what they're proposing. Again, it's going to be a very large self-storage building. Looking at 860 self-storage units in the structures. Are there any questions?
No questions? Thank you, Ron.
You can ask, I don't bite.
So, last year, the zoning ordinance was amended to allow approval of non-conforming subdivisions by conditional use permit discretion. And here we have one at 6153, I've been told it's pronounced Powhatan Avenue. Thank you. So, it is consistent with the Plan Norfolk 2030, which designates the site as single-family. It is zoned single-family, SF4, I'm sorry, SF6. So the applicant wants to subdivide this property into 2 lots that would not meet the minimum lot width. The lot area is fine, they just wouldn't meet the minimum lot width. So the standard lot width for SF6 lots is 75 feet, 7,500 square feet. Here, let's pop over here. This is what the lots look like. These lots are approximately 74 feet wide. Yeah, I know, so close, so close. But if there is no predominant pattern, or if the predominant pattern is that of larger lots, then it defaults to 75 feet wide and 7,500 square feet, as opposed to 60 feet wide and 6,000 square feet, which some SF6 lots can qualify if there's a predominant pattern of smaller lots. Okay. So, and this is what they're proposing. They're proposing 2 single-family homes. That road in the back is a paper street, but it is still a road in terms of zoning. I guess it's pronounced maybe Studley? Thanks. So, there's some concept plans. This is a picture of the property. That houseway in the back there does faces that paper street that we just talked about. And that's it. Any questions?
Who's the applicant?
The applicant is Andrea Moore, but I don't know.
You don't know who the developer is. We'll see if we can find out if there's a planned developer for the site.
The neighborhood supports it. They didn't say specifically that they support it, they just said that they didn't have any negative comments about it.
Thank you.
Joy, can you grab my phone? I left it at the dais. Yeah, thank you. It's the city's phone, so if you want to answer it, go ahead.
Thanks. All right. The next applicant we have here is Granby Street Glow Juice Bar and More. They're located 727 Granby Street. They're in the Neon District on the west side of Granby Street between Bramerton and East Only Road. The proposal is to allow the restaurant to sell alcohol beverages on premise, provide live entertainment as a part of the restaurant, and also operate a banquet hall with entertainment. The use does not conflict with Plan Norfolk 2030, is designated as downtown.
The site is zoned downtown's art and design, which allows a restaurant with live entertainment, alcohol beverages on premise by a CUP. Okay, here are the proposed floor plans. There's 3. The first one you see here, oh, this does not get updated. All right. Okay, so the applicant is proposing to install a food trailer in the rear of the site where outdoor dining currently is. However, we are still waiting on approvals from the city, state, and ABC regulations. So she has 3 different floor plans. This one here is not the correct floor plan. Where it says food trailer, there will be a food trailer there on site. Again, we're waiting approvals from other bodies. And that's the kids karaoke floor plan. And then we also have her restaurant floor plan. Okay, proposed hours of operation is 7 a.m. until 11 p.m. 7 days a week. Restaurant is 82 seats indoors, 12 bar seats with a total capacity of 139. Her floor plan does show 130, however, she does plan on having 9 employees when she has her restaurant. Banquet hall is 84 seats indoors, 0 bar seats, 24 seats outdoors with her total capacity being at 114. Now for her entertainment options, we have several. We have comedian, live band, karaoke, poetry reading, chess tournaments, performing arts, fitness, wellness, and culture dancing.
So you said this was not consistent with 20?
It is consistent.
It is, thank you. Are they open this last one?
Yes, they are open now. They're open as a restaurant or
A juice bar.
juice bar, essentially.
So just to be clear, because I don't want people driving down and seeing this. In the rear, there used to be outdoor dining. What she's proposing to do is she has a food trailer. So she's gonna put one of her food trailers in the back where it says, food trailer. There is a wooden fence, that is kind of covering up some of the food trailer, and then the rest is, there was a picture in here that showed it. And then I think there's a bench back there, I think, that people could sit on.
Correct.
If they, so the trailer is going to supplement her kitchen within the restaurant. She doesn't have a full kitchen in the restaurant, so she'll use the food trailer to supplement her existing kitchen.
As long as it has the correct approvals from ABC. And that's what the correct.
Just gotta click one more time.
Any community support? I did receive support from the Downtown Norfolk Council.
Sherry, just because I know there's a couple of new ideas for this facility, kids karaoke being one example. Chess tournament, I'm trying to get a sense, is that where people can sign up and for a fee and play chess against other people who are signing up, or is it coming to watch Grandmasters?
No, not Grandmaster. So she'll have people coming in, they can sign up to play chess.
Right, okay. Alright, I'll process that, we'll talk about whether that's a form of entertainment, or where we capture that, but that's helpful.
Would it be limited to just chess?
Checkers.
I mean, you know,
I think that's the
a
Adams.
full list of entertainment,
Point, that's why I wanted to ask, get a sense, so it's kind of like some kind of pay to play type of concept. Alright, I'll work with you and come up with a description that captures that and maybe other things that are similar that the commission would deem within the same.
I just would hate for it to be a
Yes.
violation.
It was a slightly different game. If it's the same concept, then we ought to cover all those similar things. Okay.
She has a very large list of entertainment options, and we may reference that list to be more inclusive, but we didn't want to put 50 different uses on the presentation or in the description part of the staff report.
I got you. Okay, thank you.
And I guess I should say kids karaoke goes along with it. We're not gonna allow kids karaoke, not adult karaoke. We're not gonna be citing people who are 18, 17.
Next applicant, Tracy Soul for Cuisine, conditional permit at 319 Grammy Street. Location west side of Grammy Street between College Place and Freemason Street. This is located downtown. Currently commercial, and propose allow a restaurant with alcoholic beverages for on-premise consumption, provide live entertainment, and the operation of a banquet hall with live entertainment as well. Proposed use is consistent with downtown. Zoning is DMU, downtown mixed use. A CUP is required in this district for on-premise alcohol sales after 5 p.m., live entertainment, and the operation of a banquet hall with live entertainment as well. Here's a picture of the site. Picture on the left's a little older, just gives you kind of a street perspective. It was the former California Burrito site. After that, it was VB Fit Fuel. Here's the floor plan. The right side is the side facing Grammy Street. The banquet hall and the restaurant floor plan will be the same. However, the table, the entertainment area, you can kind of see the bottom of the left, that will be removed during performances. And the applicant has experience with various roles at Mango's Restaurant, as well as ownership of an event venue space. Hours of operation, 7 a.m. to 12 a.m. Monday through Saturday, and 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Sunday. For the capacity, 6 indoors, 0 seats outdoors for a total of 92. And I did kind of trim their entertainment a little bit, but as you can see, that's what they are proposing for entertainment. And for support, Downtown Norfolk Council does not object to the application, and the Downtown Norfolk Civic League concurs with the approval of the application. Questions on this one? Okay.
Good afternoon. The next item is Swazi Thai Cuisine for a conditional use permit at 5601 East Virginia Beach Boulevard. Its existing conditions are commercial, and it's to allow an existing restaurant to sell alcohol for on-premise consumption and operate as a full-service restaurant. It is consistent with Plan Norfolk 2030, which designates the site as commercial. It's zone community commercial. And this is a picture of this site. Around the other side, there was a bit of barbed wire on the fence, which they've agreed to remove.
Could you use the microphone, please? Thanks.
Do I need, is this better? And this is their floor plan. And the hours will be from 11 a.m. until 9 p.m. 7 days a week, with 68 seats indoors and 105 total.
Existing in operation, it's a change in ownership.
Oh. Thank you.
All right, next applicant, America's Best Wings, Gyro and Pizza, conditional use permit at 201 East Berkeley Avenue. Southside East Berkeley Avenue between Fauquier Street and South Main Street, in the South Norfolk neighborhood. Berkeley neighborhood, I'm sorry. Commercial existing conditions, and all it is a restaurant looking to extend their hours. No alcohol, no live entertainment. Proposed use is consistent to commercial. Zoning is CC community commercial. Operating restaurant after 11 p.m. in the traditional characters requires a conditional use permit. And again, restaurant, no alcohol sales. Here's a picture of the site. The restaurant opened in February of 2025 under a restaurant zoning certificate. For experience, the applicant owns 10 other restaurants with a similar name in the area. Hours of operation, proposed 6 a.m. to 12 a.m., 7 days a week. Again, no alcohol sales, and for capacity, 16 seats indoors, 0 seats outdoors for a total of 39. There have been concerns with the community, crime, loitering, other issues in the shopping center, possibly related to this establishment. Originally, the applicant wanted a 24-hour operation. We did some back and forth, and they've agreed on 6 a.m. to 12 a.m., 7 days a week. So that's what they have proposed to us. Point of reference, there were 396 calls for service in the last year to the shopping center. 396? Yes. More than that. Out of those calls, though, only 2 were related to this establishment. So there are other parts. Only 2 were related to America's Best Wings. They were both for, I believe they're suspicious.
I'll give more clarification. They've got calls.
They just want to open an hour early.
Correct.
any support from the community?
Originally, they did not support the community. However, I did reach out to them based on the new proposed hours. They do support this application. It is state if any problems do occur, though, they do want action taken. And we are going to recommend a 2-year sunset on this one as well. Any questions?
Was there a history of problems with the other establishments that he had, that the owner has?
There's a couple different names. There's America's Best Wings, which is a different ownership. I know there's a lot of confusion. This name, though, is the 10 he owns under this exact name.
We received anecdotal complaints that were provided to us of the late night operations here and potential loitering of people. From best that we can tell, because they are near the shipyards, it could be people coming off of third shift or going into third shift trying to get some food in the middle of the night. Which is why the community initially did not support the application, because they wanted to be open 24 hours a day, so.
Or do they sell, you said they're not asking for alcohol, but is there alcohol being sold nearby?
No, they're only asking for hours. This one's a little different. This is only asking for the extended hours.
I'd kind of like to get the other people in. I mean, those calls for service, that's really worrisome.
It is, 390 something.
It's hard to say, though. I mean, were the calls directly related to the other businesses, or were they nearby and somebody called in, hey, there's 2 people suspicious at
Not
this
much is
location?
open in that shopping center, so
It's what?
not really anything is open in that shopping center after, I think, 10, I think.
10 p.m. was the Dollar General or similar store, and the rest were 8 or 9.
So,
We could take a look at we'll dive into that data set just a little bit, but again, the community does now support this proposal, right, Andrew? So, okay.
So this would be a CUP, and it would expire in 2 years, but not just the time, it would be the entire organization, when it comes back after the sunset. A 2-year, did I mishear you?
No, we're recommending a 2-year sunset for this operation, for this property.
Right, but it would be the whole, we would not be at renewal, we would not be reconsidering, we would be able to consider more than just that 1 hour. It would be the whole operation.
Yes. When they come back to the process.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I wasn't clear.
It's okay, I'm trying to make sure.
Sorry, they would be able to reopen it if their renewal CUP, let's say they didn't wanna go forward with the renewal, or they wanted to just scale back to their hours and didn't wanna apply again, they could just get a restaurant zoning certificate to be open from 7 to 11, or 6 to 11.
Oh, okay. So even if they let it expire, they would still continue as they are today?
By right.
By right,
Yeah, right.
gotcha, I got you.
But if your question was, when it comes back, could you consider 1 AM, you could.
I was thinking about the calls to service, and if there were something untoward was going on.
All they could do is be cut back to the by right use, they couldn't be closed.
Gotcha.
You'd have to open an hour later, too. It's 7 a.m.
Thank you.
So just to clarify.
Thank you.
That's an excellent question.
Third shift,
You guys really saying.
third shift dock workers.
Yeah, they just got off work, so that's kind of their dinner time, yeah.
Yeah, I thought this was the same shopping center, but it's been several years since those other facilities were closed. From the raid, there was establishments that were illegally selling illegal products that was busted, but that was in 2022, so I'm not sure what's going on with the year of calls for service that you asked about.
All right, this next one is for Solagant LLC for a conditional use permit at 419 West 22nd Street. The existing conditions are commercial, and it's to allow for the operation of a tattoo parlor. It is consistent with Plan Norfolk 2030, zoned community commercial. And this tattoo parlor, it would be like the Sola is suites, which are rented out to different licensed professionals, and then they kind of make their own schedules within the listed hours. So it would just be to allow like one of those or some of those suites to have regular tattooing in them. And then here is a photo. any questions?
And the tattoo parlor is one of the suites, not all of them.
I believe it was up to 4, but I can confirm with.
I think the request was for a certain number in the suite, so but it didn't tie it to the location, like a bay in the suite.
On to our STRs. This is Daniel and Catherine Coates applying for a CUP renewal at 9569 20th Bay Street. The site is the site is on the west side of 20th Bay Street, south of Pleasant Avenue, and the request is to allow a renewal of a CUP. Here's the future land use map. The site is zoned RC and does not conflict with Plan Norfolk 2030. All STRs in RC zone with more than 3 bedrooms require a conditional use permit. The applicant, like I said, is renewing a conditional use permit in a 4-bedroom single-family home. Here is the site. The applicant was granted a CUP in December of 2023. That is set to expire in December of 2025. Enforcement, there were no calls for service police within a year. No open zoning building code violations. No history of unauthorized STR at this property. The applicant currently uses Sojourn for property management and will continue to use them for property management. All right, and then here's the neighborhood analysis, 500 feet to 1 mile of this site. Any questions? No. Hmm?
All right, our next short-term rental is going to be for Daryl LeBlanc at 831 Little Bay Avenue. That's on south side of Little Bay next to Captain Quarters Park. It's consistent with Plan Norfolk 2030. It's in RC. Since there's 2 buildings on this property, each one has more than 3 bedrooms, it needs a CUP. That is the location. We're not requesting any improvements or anything like that. There were no complaints or violations during the term of their previous CUP. And that's your density. Any questions?
I did have a question, and I'm
Yes, ma'am.
sorry, I had a question about the previous one too, but what are you recommending for renewal
For renewals, it would be 5 years typically.
for both of them?
So, yeah, since there's no issues.
Typically, if we bring up the issues, we will then alert the commission if we're going to recommend 2 years instead of 5 for the renewal.
Next short-term rental, clarification, this is initial short-term rental, not a renewal. Alvin Johnson Jr. is the applicant, 2410 Corona Avenue. West side of Corona Avenue between Cottage Avenue and Bolton Street. This is in the Broad Park neighborhood. And proposed to allow the operation of a short-term rental, vacation rental. Proposed use is consistent. Zoning is SFT. In this district, the CUP is required for all vacation rentals regardless of bedroom count. Here's a picture of the site. Currently meets most of the requirements. Property will be self-managed by the applicant's agent. She will manage the hosting platform and fulfill the requirements of the emergency contact. Picture on the right, you can see the driveway. It's currently a foot too narrow to meet 2 cars based on our dimensions. He will be widening. He has submitted the application for the permit, and that will be required to be widened and completed prior to zoning approval. Here's the neighbor analysis within 1 mile and 500 feet. And the applicant met with the Lindenwood Broad Park Cottage Heights Civic League. I had not received any feedback, though. Any questions?
Thank you.
Next as well. The applicant for this one is Jeffrey Wallace. This is for a development certificate at 2620 Lafayette. This is the north side of Lafayette Boulevard between Linz Avenue and Argonne Avenue. And proposals to replace the building on site, which is currently a vacant lot. Proposed use is consistent, designates as commercial. Zoning is in Lafayette PCO, pedestrian commercial overlay. In this Lafayette PCO, all new principal structures and substantial developments require a development certificate. And I will allow Elizabeth to take.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. So this item did come before the ARB this week. The site you can see here, where those cars are parked, that is the actual lot itself. So there's two things about this that came to ARB. One was for a request for a determination of architectural appropriateness. So before you recently, there was a discussion about maybe modifying parts of the zoning ordinance to change the minimum building height for commercial structures to be less than 20 feet. And it was determined there's already a process for that. That was this process. This applicant is proposing a 16-foot tall building. He does have, and I'll get into the design parts of it, but I'm going to show you some photos of the immediate site around here. So the structure that is right next to it is a historic movie theater that has been operating as a church. It comes up at an angle, but the corner is about 27-ish feet. That's looking west down Lafayette Boulevard. So there is a one-story commercial building. The same owner actually redeveloped that property. And there's a historic two-story commercial and then another one-story. This is looking east on the left, and on the right, that's directly across from the subject site. That's the new fire station that should be completed by November, fingers crossed. And on the left side, it's one-story residential. That pattern continues down Lenz Avenue to the south of this site. So when the board was looking at that context and looking at the parapet height in the center there, actually hits 20 feet, but how we measure what a building height is, it's to the roof line, it's not to ancillary structures that are just kind of decorative. So they determined that this was appropriate for that context. So this is the design that is being put forward. They are showing lap siding. It's going to be a fiber cement hardy board. The color combination is going to, he calls it coffee and cream. It's a creamy white with a kind of mocha brown color. At the request of the neighborhood, which did provide a letter of conditional support for this project, he did add a brick skirt foundation. The predominant character on Lafayette Boulevard is masonry on the primary thoroughfare. There's some other design recommendations in other parts of the comprehensive plan specific to Lafayette Boulevard that also calls for masonry. The Architectural Review Board agreed with those recommendations. So what they have put forward to you is a unanimous support of the project. Here you can see the context, but with the condition that brick be used on the front elevation and that it turn the corner at Lenz Avenue so that there is a solid transition down to the residential component, that you still have a strong corner at that intersection. But it was with a vote of 6-0 with one abstention to recommend approval of the development certificate to you. Do you have any questions about the design review process or the ARB's recommendation?
All right, here are the 6 planning commission review items for the development certificates. I'll read them to you. And just note this development certificate will not require any waivers. No waivers on this one. Any questions?
This is a reminder, if a development certificate does not require waivers, the planning commission is the deciding body on the development certificate. So we'll stop with the planning commission.
Thank you. And then the airport.
The airport, as the action item that we talked about earlier. And then the last portion, was gonna pawn it off onto Austin, but he's not here. Council during one of their work sessions had discussed with myself and the city attorney, who then shared it with Adam, where they would like to see for conditional use permits, if they're denied, to have a similar, I guess the term you could use is a blackout period for where they cannot apply again, similar to what we have in the zoning ordinance for rezonings that are denied. So currently in the zoning ordinance, if a rezoning is denied, the person cannot ask for the same rezoning, substantially same rezoning, and with it for 1 year. They would like the same thing for conditional use permits. Unfortunately, as you're aware, we had one applicant for a short-term rental come up a month after, reapply 1 month after they had been denied by city council, which had sparked the conversation. So Adam, is there any additional?
No, it would just be to carry over the existing waiting period to ask the same thing again for the same property, for the same permission. that you currently have for rezoning, just carry that over to CUPs.
That would just be on part of new business to initiate that text amendment.
Any questions? All right, well, I think that's our preview. Thank you, everybody.
So, Susan, were there sites that you felt were important for us to go visit? When you said that, I thought, well, can I take the talk?
So, we would have, I probably would have recommended that, the, Craft Divine Grace, that's, I thought was an interesting site. Maybe the ABC supportive number 6,
4, number 6.
and then probably the, not the green clean, so not the conversion of the building, but probably the other 2 hand car washes. Although I will say, when we first went to them, they needed a lot of work and a lot of cleanup, but for some good reason, the property owners really kind of stepped up and did a lot of cleaning, and so we can move them forward. It was pretty questionable there for a while. And then I don't know if we would have wanted to bring you to the Granby Street just to see that back area, because I know we're gonna get questions on that. And those are probably the ones I would have taken you to go see.
So Susan's recommending for potential 4, 6, 8, 9, and 12 to take a look at.
And I'm a little confused, but, because we had, for instance, the one on Lafayette Boulevard that's gonna be a new building. And I think there were some that were a change in ownership. How did what we worked on at the retreat as far as need for landscaping or beautification fall into some of these that we've already, that we talked about today?
Because we have, so we probably met with these applicants probably 2 months ago.
Okay.
So we weren't gonna pop onto them now, oh, well, you need to make site improvements. So from this point forward, we're gonna start that. So it may be probably not until December where we'll start to see requesting for improvements.
Right, that's great.
Ms. Brink.
I will add, I didn't touch on it in the 2620 Lafayette, that the applicant will, as part of their application, be improving the sidewalks. So they will have a 5-foot garden bed on the front facing Lafayette, and they are also doing a sidewalk 5 feet on the Lens Avenue side with a grass verge. So that will be cleaned up considerably. They are retaining that apron for access to parking behind the building. And that will accompany that development.
Great, thank you very much.
Super. What did you see as far as consent agenda? Anyone want to add?
Only change on Savati is the owners, all the hours are the same, everything else is the same.
I would go with that one too. 14, 17, and 18. 14, 17, and 18. I didn't hear you, Susan.
The number 16, we attempted to make tattoos by right, but that didn't go so well, but I don't know if you'd be interested in that one.
What do y'all think about that? The tattoo?
Yeah, 16. Yeah, I think I think the commission's already aware, maybe for the benefit of people watching. Maybe Dr. Whibley didn't sit through it, but the last time you had a presentation of some of the other health department and code requirements for tattoo parlors, they are substantial. And so whether it's 2 salon spaces or 4 salon spaces, it is all gonna have to be addressed through the health department with the correct equipment and cleanliness and hygiene and the right kinds of sinks and all that stuff. So a lot of the details of exactly how that interior has to be improved to make whichever spaces are gonna be eligible for use by a visiting tattoo artist is gonna be substantially completely addressed by the health department regs. So I think that's why the planning staff is not working to identify exactly how many spaces that the code requirements from the health department are pretty extensive there.
So you're comfortable with
So you're saying
14, 16, 17, and 18.
Good job.
And director's comments.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Council met on Tuesday, but there were no planning items on the agenda. It was an early meeting from their normal cadence, I believe due to potential conflict with the holiday next Tuesday. So not a holiday for us, but I guess some other people are maybe taking off, so yes. But other than that, it's I do want to remind the commission, thank you, Sherry, for sending me hand signals from over there. On the 23rd, we will start at noon because we have to preview November. So for the November hearing, there is no mid-month meeting that goes straight to the public hearing. So staff will have all the items for November to brief you on before we let Susan do the shortened version of the update on the agenda items for October.
So we meet at noon.
Yes, we'll meet at noon.
Will someone update the calendar?
Should be, it was.
I meant the online calendar.
Oh, the online?
invites.
Oh, okay, is it on there? We'll double check, we'll make sure that they are.
So, will you recommend ahead of time if you want us to go see places? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any comments from the commissioners?
I miss seeing you all guys next week. I mean, every week we're meeting.
We can arrange that. We can get together.
Okay, Cape Cod.
Judith,
Yeah, that's
Don't talk about this.
That's right. Still can't do it.
Well, I think the next meeting should be the guys that aren't here, so they're taking over.
Scott
I think
invited
that's
us,
only fair.
Scott invited us to Rome if we wanted to all go over.
I would take that.
I would take that up, yeah.
How did this feel today? Just kind of the abbreviated presentations.
I don't think it was much abbreviated, but it was a regular,
We skipped minor things,
yeah, it
but overall it was.
was a good presentation.
Oh, very good, yes.
So,
I thought really what we were more interested in is
The next one,
the
yeah.
public hearing.
Prior to.
Since we've already, in that, okay,
Just checking in.
my question would be, did that feel okay with you guys, the one that are presenting?
We're still figuring it out, so we had a nice heated debate on Tuesday of how to still provide the information in a logical manner without having to make 3 PowerPoints. So we're working through that, but staff, I think we have a better understanding, so.
so what was heated, what did people?
Oh, you know, there's some, we all have our preferences on how things should go. So, that's right. We have our preferences, so, yeah, so, but that's all right. So we'll figure it out and we'll assure that we get it tightened up. So.
Well, if there's no other comments or questions, I think we're adjourned.
Thank you.